Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Join Cycling from Spoleto to Prati di Tivo, Stage 8 of the Giro d'Italia, our second mountaintop finish. We had a hilltop finish in the TT yesterday. We had a mountaintop finish, a soft one though, on Europa on last Sunday, Stage 2. Now the hardest mountain stage so far. Not brutal. First 4K, 7%. Descent, then another longer climb, the Capistrello, 16Ks, 5.6%, but again, the first 5Ks are about 7.5% on that climb. Then a rolling valley of really nothing serious whatsoever, before another Category 3 climb, 8Ks, 5%, which isn't scaring anybody, before a descent, no flat, and starting Prati di Tivo, 14.7K, 7%. You know this climb pretty well if you've been following Tirreno Adriatico in 2021, or Giro Abruzzo, where Lutsenko defeated and held off victoriously 3 UAE riders countering him a few weeks ago. Very regular climb. Every K is like between 6 and 8%. Super good tarmac and road surface, not to high altitude, normally very, very fast and high-level climb performances on this climb.
We'll see today whether that actually comes through when it comes to high climbing performances, because it would depend on whether we'd see passiveness or activeness in the GC group, whether we'd see that in the breakaway formation phase, whether we would see some people trying to put pressure on other teams at the start or at the end of today's stage. And there's so many directions we could look at this stage at beforehand. We went into a few of them yesterday. For example, Thomas had a bad day on the TT. Will Bora, will Decathlon try and benefit from that? Will Ineos, now that they've got a second leader in Arensman who isn't decades behind in GC, maybe try and put him in the breakaway, which I think would have been a good strategy? All those things were possible. And from UAE's perspective, I thought they would not go for the stage. And the reason that I thought that was the following. On paper, this is the kind of stage where UAE would go for the stage.
Yeah.
But like, if you look at the profile, that's the stage they would do it on. But it's completely unnecessary on paper, although I can't blame them for wanting that in the first place. We'll go into that discussion in a little bit, if it occurs or not. But when it comes to the breakaway formation, the early phase of today's race, we saw numerous riders trying to attack, and I feel that we're a bit over-eager when it comes to attacking. This morning, I switched my mind from Bardet to Steinhauser when it comes to potentially winning today's stage, because he had been really consistent over the last week.
Yeah.
But he was way too eager. He was always trying to, like, a break of 8-10 riders goes up the road.
Yeah.
And then he'd attack that group, a bit like Alaphilippe does and did today.
Or follow Alaphilippe, yeah. And it's like, that's going nowhere. Don't fuga from the fuga that's not even fugad yet. You want to wait for it to be a fuga properly first. But yeah, it eventually, because it took so long to form, everyone got so tired. No one could bring tug buddies with them, which is very important because, as I said,
Quintana.
Except Quintana brought
And
the incredible Peleo Sanchez.
Ineos.
Yeah, I didn't really see Narvaez tugging too much for Sheffield, to be honest.
You see it in that direction. I saw them having Sheffield to the work for Narvaez.
Nah, Narvaez can't climb.
This kind of climb, those two in the breakaway, I don't see that going anywhere on this stage, personally.
No.
But I will say, when it comes to the breakaway that eventually formed, before I list off the names of riders that are in it, UAE during the breakaway formation riding exactly the same way they did over the last couple of days when it comes to break formation. And we've learned now that you can't guess from that whether they want to go for the stage or not, because they're a bit over eager when it comes to their controlling of that breakaway formation. As in, a break of 5 riders goes up the road, 4 react, UAE chases down the next 4 on paper is what they do. And they also chase down large groups that might not even be dangerous. Yes, you can't really know instantly who's in there, even though a lot of the time I bet these riders still do know who's in there because they're at the front looking at who's going off. We didn't see the likes of Plap attacking. I didn't see it personally. It was really the Steinhausers of the world, the Geschkes, Bardet being active, Alaphilippe being very active.
Dora.
And the group that forms is Narvaez Sheffield for Ineos, Verre, who was also a solid climber in the climb yesterday on the DT for Arkea. We've got Mulubran, who I have a difficult time seeing a possibility for him to win today's stage. So it's kind of that rider in the breakaway, just to have a token rider in the breakaway vibe that I've got going with him. Geschke, he's gone for K1 points in the Tour de France before. Vingegaard sniped it away from him at the end. Looked to be going for it a bit today again. Was in the breakaway. VPP, Valentin Paré-Panther, George Steinhauser, the overeager one. Nairo Quintana with Pelayo Sanchez. So he's got a tug buddy for Quintana. Alaphilippe, again, overeager as well. Bardet, Demarchi, Storr, and Marcellucci. And that's a breakaway that I see zero issue with letting go. And then it's UAE's decision to decide, do we want to go for the stage or do we not want to go for the stage?
Yeah. And they were waiting. You saw Novak, and then they're waiting for Bjerg to come back. You see him screaming back.
Because
there was a little bit of time in break formation where UAE had only 2 domestiques. Oh, well, look, if Aronsman jumps here across to Sheffield, maybe Ineos could try something.
Yeah.
And that valley of maybe 60, 70 kilometers before the Croce Abio, you maybe could put UAE under pressure or do something there. In the end, as you say, like, you're watching the time gap. It gets to a minute.
Yeah.
And then you're seeing, where's this it's gonna keep going up, where's it gonna stop?
Yeah.
Because where it stops tells you what UAE are doing. Because if it stops at 2 minutes, they want the stage, because the breakaway's not going to hold on to 2 minutes on the climb. And then if they just let it go to 3, to 4, to 5, they don't care about the stage. They're waiting. They're actually doing a very, maybe the right thing to do for resting the guys is to let it go to 5 minutes. Bardet's in the break on 5.5 minutes. Storr is on 6 minutes. And you say, well, the gap is 5.5 minutes. Jayco, do you want to protect Plapp's GC position? Visma, Bahrain, protect Tiberi and Otterbrook's GC position. Then you have the day off.
Exactly. And when I do look at the next week of racing, I was like, okay, what stage do we have? We've got a bit of a breakaway / sprinter stage tomorrow, depending on who's incentivized to go for it. Then after the rest day, we're looking at Cusano Mutri or something is what it's called, just a Unipuerto stage, which is basically a flat stage with a mountain at the finish. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking that's the kind of stage where UAE will put probably their riders at the front and go for the stage win. I see it as a stage you can control easily, and therefore Pogacar is the favorite for that stage. So 140 kilometers, perfection.
Easy.
But the rest is kind of, there's a mural stage. Some control will be necessary when it comes to UAE. But I'm looking at the second week and I don't see much work necessary for the teammates of Pogacar where you can't risk going for this stage in. And we saw at the gap.
And Poggy hasn't won in pink on the road yet.
Exactly.
So he's
Some
got
riders care about that.
He's got to get the photo. Riders, by the way, do care about that.
Yeah.
They like, I think like Remco won a world champs. They do care about that photo.
The Instagram picture is needed, eh?
But also, like, it's an easy dub.
Yeah.
Like, Novak can have a rest day tomorrow and the day after, and so can Berg and Lange. So, like, would you want to do this every day? No. Do you have to do this every day? No. So, easy dub. It's a Grand Tour stage win.
You can risk it today because of that next week, but also next to that, there's going to be people that are saying, oh, Pogacar, UAE, they're so great, they're the greedy bastards. They always want to win. The people saying that are the kind of people that are in the team car of the riders of the breakaway that is being caught by UAE. We've had that. I think TJ Van Garderen in Pyrenees or Catalonia was complaining that someone who was overeager was probably UAE with Pogacar to try and win the stage. Even on a stage where I didn't really see them really hardcore ride for it.
In Andalusia last year is a little bit much, maybe.
I didn't. I think if you are the best, you're allowed to show you're the best.
Yeah,
it's on the others to outplay you. And if they can't do that, they should look inwards instead of blaming you for being greedy.
Exactly. And this is high level sports competition. But before we get into sort of the status quo phase of this race, a word on Join Cycling. I've got an update for you. I finished the Fabio Jakobsen sprint plan just before, thank you, Benji, just before the first rest day of the Giro d'Italia. Actually, was only like one session a week, really, that was sprints. And I thought, why not see if the proof is in the pudding? Has my sprint improved? Went out last night, thought I'd do a little test of it. And up and down the valley here out to Sorten, did 4 sprints and actually set my best ever 10-second power, best ever 15-second power, second best, fourth best 5-second power, but I was doing longer sprints. So, and then also the other 3 sprints were really, really good, and they were then up in my my top 10 best 10-second power ever. So I'm really, really happy with how that's worked. But most importantly, because actually I want my endurance to improve, that's also improved as well. But you all put me on the Fabio Jakobsen sprint plan, which actually is quite well rounded. So on to my next plan. I'm not putting the power back into the people's hands because they'll probably choose like a mountain bike short track plan or something. Or they'll like request a custom plan from Join Cycling, which you can do. But yeah, I finished the Fabio Jakobsen sprint plan. and I'm really, really happy with the results. So if you want to check out Join Cycling, there's a variety of plans for your goals, whether it's a 3-month stamina builder, whether you're a beginner, whether you're a pro preparing for a huge week-long mountainous event and you want to train 20 hours a week. Join Cycling caters to all of those stages of cycling, and you can get 30 days free trial through the link down below using our special offer, as well as a 6-month discounted subscription once that 30 days has elapsed. And yeah, make sure you check me and Benji out on Strava. I'm using Join just about every day when I don't have the 3 days off, 3 days on, 1 day off rest day.
Okay, let's talk about the action in the stage. We've got UAE looking like they're going for the stage win because they're actively now pacing down the gap. It went down to 2 minutes 30, 3 minutes maximum.
Yeah, because Bjerg can't descend.
And between 60 and 40 kilometers to go, we see Mikkel Bjerg coming to the front. We'll talk about the breakaway shenanigans in a bit. But we see UAE going to the front with, well, they were at the front already, but Bjerg really putting in the tempo, dropping that gap from 2:30 to, let's say, 1:20 at a certain point. And after the stage, Giannetti did say that it wasn't actually the plan to control the stage, but that the teammates of Pogacar convinced Pogacar or the team car to go for the stage, which I think if the riders themselves, the teammates themselves want to suffer their ass off the entire stage, you might as well do it.
Yeah, I mean, why not put Langen on the front? And yeah, he and Berg control it really, really well. And also, like the break, they were fighting amongst themselves as it was forming because Alaphilippe's attacking them, and then Quintana's there with Sanchez, and so he's not wanting to pull too much. And then there's the valley, and it really wasn't cooperating too well. You got Bardet, who's like, can we get a move on? I want to take some free GC time. Storers, I think, being a bit more conservative, maybe one would say a bit smarter than Bardet in the end for running the breakaway. VPP is trying to keep it moving. They're attacking each other constantly. It was a mess. And that was because they knew they were doomed. Like Demarchi was in it, right? Yeah, there was a Jaco. It would have been Demarchi. He was like, eventually gave up and he was like, this is a one big mess. This breakaway. So yeah, they eventually go nowhere. We see that UAE almost bring the gap down too much. Like UAE bring the gap down to 30 seconds at the base of Prati de Tivo. A minute and a minute and a half would have been totally fine. And you save Bjerg maybe for the base of Prati de Tivo, but it doesn't matter because UAE start pacing Benji at a decent pace with Novak. I think, it was Novak.
Correct.
Peloton immediately goes from like 70 to 25, but then stays 25 for quite a while.
Exactly. And in the breakaway, we do see some action. We do see riders saying, okay, I'm going to try and hammer it a little bit more. Maybe Steinhauser early on the climb. We see those moves. And I think Verre was the one that really put the hammer down at a certain point and created a fuga de la fuga on the climb, a breakaway from the breakaway on the climb itself. And then you see the weakness towards certain riders. Sheffield paced at the start of the climb, dropped when Verre made that move. Narvaez dropped out of the breakaway at a certain point as well. We saw half the breakaway drop, Mulebrand drop, Alaphilippe, one of the first riders to drop, already dropped on a climb earlier. So we're seeing the shifting, and that's not even a word in English probably, but I just straight up translated that from Dutch, so only Dutch people understand what I just said. But half the breakaway was gone at a certain point, and we saw damage being done there up to the point that the breakaway kind of kept a similar gap at around 20 seconds for a bit. And in the peloton, like you say, it was first Novak. I do want to pause there for a second and highlight Langen rode an extremely good race today. Yeah, Langen was not visible on the final climb, but he was very prominent in the mid phase of the race, and the fact that he was there, that he came back, that he was still active. I think Vega Stake Langen, and however you pronounce it, Norwegian people, that was a strong performance that goes underrated. And I feel like he's often underrated, although we say his name a few times, so he's probably rated at this point. But after Novak, was it Großschartner already?
No, it was so Novak's pacing. The gap, as you say, is basically 20 to 25 seconds. VPP then goes up the road. The rest of the break give up. And then Maximilian Schachmann hits the front.
Oh, yes.
But Bora Hansgrohe. Really, now this is a real pace lift. And this is with like 10Ks to go. So we're like 4Ks into this climb. And they've got Aliotti and Martinez. Schachmann lifts it really hard. Now riders are getting dropped. Lutsenko gets dropped. Jan Hirt gets... No, Jan Hirt's there. Filippo Zana gets dropped.
Yes.
So
Bianzoli?
Biganzoli. So 3 guys, fringe top 10 guys are really losing a minute around there today plus. And Schachman's pulling super hard, but how long can he keep this going? And is Aliotti going to go over the top of him and keep pacing for Broe? They're missing Lipovitz. Imagine if Lipovitz was here and you got him to follow up after Aliotti, but Schachman's pulling. That brings the gap to 7 seconds to VPP.
Yep.
He's still up there. We're coming up to 8, maybe 9Ks to go. Schachman pulls off, and you've just left with Grosjean and Micah to do 8Ks. And I was thinking, UAE normally for Poggy, and even on this climb before, they would do Grosjean for 3Ks, 2.5, 3Ks, Micah for 1K, Poggy goes 4Ks to go, attacks, takes 30 seconds, happy days, solo, no problem. That's how they've ridden pretty much every mountaintop finish where he's the top favorite for the last 3-4 years. And that's actually, which I'm not even saying that's the correct thing to do. They do the opposite today.
That is the safer thing to do, in my opinion.
It's
in the short term.
It's the thing to do when you want to take time, but Poggy doesn't need to take time.
He doesn't need to take time, but I still think it's a safer thing to do because the likelihood of Pogačar dropping everybody and winning solo in my head before the stage is higher than there can always happen something in a sprint. You can get boxed in, something
drop
can
your
happen.
Chain or something. Yeah.
Exactly. So you can still lose a stage if you're in the same group.
Yeah.
If you're ahead, then it's less likely to have a consequence if you have a drop chain.
But that comes at a cost.
Exactly. It's a little bit playing with fire, but on the opposite side of the balance, you save energy with your teammates a little bit, but mainly with Pogačar.
Yeah, I think they're already thinking of the Tour de France, to be honest, and maybe not trying to completely do a maximum effort where not necessary. And so Grosjean starts pacing and he just holds it stable to VPP. Stable, stable, stable. I still didn't really, I was on the live stream saying, oh, they're just going to do the Roglic style where you just sort of get him to do a launch at 200 and he wins, with an easy sprint, which is not wrong. Yeah, they're just going to do that. But then Grosjean and Benji lifts the pace again.
Yeah.
There's a period here just after the village where Poggy attacked in Tirreno 21, 5Ks to go. Grosjean, he lifts the pace.
Yeah.
And he brings it 10 seconds out of VPP. It goes down to 8 seconds, 9 seconds again. And guys are getting gapped, dropped. It was like hit, and other guys were actually losing touch. APP.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking now the Micah lead out will come for 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and then Poggy will go. Why, if that was their strategy, does Grosjean lift it there?
Because there's also the effect, I think, of you're almost running out and you want to do the last bit you have, and maybe you underestimate what you still have and then you hammer it a bit too much while you... I think it's more that vibe than actually the calculated, where I'm going to lift it before I drop off, or maybe that's just because they're used to doing that, that's the way he rode it. But it's before like a bend towards the right where Micah then comes to the front and starts gradually continuing, not upping the pace again, just a gradual tempo, the kind of tempo that you'd expect, like in a strategy for Roglic to get him to that final sprint. Then I was still under the impression that Pogačar would attack, to be honest, at that point. But Micah just kept doing that longer and longer. Now, before we go towards the last phase of this race, let's talk about who's still in the group.
Everyone kind of relevant. Except...
Aliotti's there with Martinez.
Yep.
But we discussed this on the watch along.
Oh no, he pulls out after when Micah starts,
Yeah, he pulls out, and then the thing is, you're using Schachmann with 10K to go. You're not using Aliotti because you're keeping him for... If you don't use him, he's going to get dropped before you can use him.
Well, that's why I was like, does Martinez not feel good after Schachmann's pull?
I don't know.
Because why increase the pace with Schachmann? Well, maybe Bora Benji were trying to do, we lift the pace with Schachmann?
Yeah.
If we see G or O'Connor slide, then you put Aliotti to the front, but G and O'Connor were rock solid.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And maybe they were hoping someone would slide in the next 3 kilometers, then you can use Aliotti to extend the gap. So maybe that's the twist. It's an okay strategy. It's solid.
It makes sense. All Martinez didn't feel good after Schachmann's pull.
Baudin's there together with O'Connor.
Yep.
Baudin looking extremely good this Giro.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this guy's out of contract. I'm pretty sure he's 22.
He's young, yeah.
Is that true what I'm saying? Yes, he's out of contract. Yes, he's 22. And this man's still in contention for the white jersey. This is a rider a lot of teams should be willing to sign unless they're an NPCC, because then the Tramadol case might be a bit more.
But he's on an NPCC team.
Yeah, but Decathlon clearly doesn't give a fuck. So
Yeah.
in the rest of the group, we see Kian there isolated. He was moving back a little bit earlier, moving up again. He still looked relatively okay, in my opinion. Thomas was there with Arensman. Thomas looked really solid. Unlike yesterday, he looked to be having an okay day again. Can we judge from this that... Because, like...
Thomas looked completely solid.
Yes, but there was no furious tempo or something on the climb. Like, not a lead out by Majka to launch Pogacar.
Well, that's the thing.
There's not enough tempo for me here to know whether it would have exposed someone.
Exactly. Go look at the tape from when Majka starts pulling to when Tiberi attacks and see who drops. I think it's nobody.
Yep.
No, and we're talking...
Maybe Hirt on a little gap, but that's it.
We're talking Hirt and Pozzo, and they're still clinging on. So
yeah,
Bourdin's
still there. So
clearly Poggy, we saw... I kept saying I was like, oh, they're talking. He's going to ramp it up through this next hairpin. They're going to ramp it up. They're going to ramp it up. And they were talking, Poggy and Majka. But I think Poggy must have just said to him, no, just sprint.
Yeah.
And so Majka does, it's the old Visma Roglic. You just sit on a pace. There's only two teams that can do something. Decathlon with Baudin and O'Connor, but I think Baudin's hanging on for dear life.
Yeah.
And Arensman and G for Ineos that can try to do something. Because all the LGC contenders are isolated, and Majka's just sitting there on a steady tempo, and it's like Poggy's the favorite for the sprint.
The one slight risk you have, though, with this strategy is that you're doing that with a limited amount of riders over a long length of kilometers. 2 riders for 9-ish kilometers, whatever it was. That means that you arrive in the last 4 kilometers with Majka having to do a lot. And when somebody makes a move, he's not going to be able to be the one solving it anymore. So, for example, when Tiberi makes his attack, I think it was in the last 2 kilometers, if I recall correctly.
It's starting to level off now.
Kian looked to be trying to respond. Couldn't close the gap. Looks like he's got a threshold of, I can do maximum 500 watts.
500 watt cap.
So it's kind of the climbing Tim de Klerk.
Yeah.
Kruiswijk style.
Yeah.
But Poggy was also responding to Tiberi and was actually the one closing him past Kian.
And then
And that's also the thing I'm saying here. Like, the slight risk to the strategy of UAE is that Poggy needs to close everyone now if he wants to win the stage.
And he had to. He had to close him down, but then
Arensman, I think?
Arensman goes on the right-hand side. Poggy shuts it. Tiberi's also there. So we see a white jersey little skirmish, but in the end, like, you see Poggy closing. People are, what am I going to do in 1,200 meters? Poggy's fresh. Like, what are you going to do? And I was even thinking Poggy would dance away at this point because Martinez...
He could counter him easily. He looked like he could easily counter Tiberi.
He could counter, but he didn't. And he does probably the sensible thing. He lets Majka come back. Majka does the lead out. Poggy sets up for the sprint. Majka makes sure to leave enough space on the inside of the barriers so to not box him in because Martinez tried to box in Poggy on his right. And Pogacar dusts him in the sprint and wins the sprint easily in the Maglia Rosa. Martinez second, but he was slowing down. O'Connor, I almost thought nailed him on the line for second, but actually Martinez holds second, O'Connor third. They're on a 2-second gap. Tiberi was courageous, attacking a few times, but he's on 2 seconds in a group of Rubio, Thomas, Uiterbrooks. Arensman gets gapped after attacking on 11 seconds. Storer is the unbelievable ride of the day. After being in the breakaway, doing the first half of the climb, maybe first third of the climb on his own, or in the break, and then only losing 13 seconds is... I mean, he was fortunate the way UAE shut it down, but still very, very good performance from him. You look at compared to Bardet.
Yeah.
Sorry to dig the knife in, Luke, but... you know, he loses 2:21, so Storer is over 2 minutes better than him. And
I think he's going to be happy if he wins the stage.
Yeah.
When it comes to KOM, Geschke was the one that took most of the points, so it's not like Bardet even made a big score there. He's on 15, won like 6 points after the stage.
Yeah. Baudin in 10th on 21 seconds in a group of Fortunato, Majka, but Pozzovivo hurt. Then there is a decent gap, and then we have a GC group of Piganzoli, Zana, and Lutsenko on 2:21. So that's a big blow for Lutsenko. Plapp sort of gave it away at the base of the climb. Looked sort of intentional because Plapp...
That's a bit weird to me.
He loses 20 minutes.
Because like he looked like he chose to stop, chose to not go for it, which is kind of the thing Van der Poel did in mountain stages that he could maybe survive a little bit in back in the day. But with Plab, the thing is, he could actually defend his white jersey. He could actually defend a close GC position. I would have preferred him to go for it. We've got a stage tomorrow that he could try and go in the break win, but there's so many sprinters that might be incentivized to pace that day.
Yeah.
I didn't really like that personally because I don't know. It seemed like a decision to me.
Or maybe he didn't feel good, but
Yeah, possibly.
But nah, he's done the climb 70% slower than the GC group. So he's just cruising. He did the climb in like 55 minutes maybe.
Yeah, but if you feel bad at the start, then you're not gonna try anymore anyway. So it's kind of like, but I still think he chose to do it, and I would have preferred him to go for it because outside of the effort today, I don't see the major downside to trying at least.
Yeah,
it's like if you're still close in GC, you can still go in the breakaway. Today he had a gap enough to be in the breakaway, in my opinion.
Probably, yeah. In terms of GC, Pogačar leads by 2:40 ahead of Martinez, so he extends his gap by 4 seconds. Thomas is on 2:58, O'Connor on 3:39, so no positional changes in the top four. Uiterbrooks, just by being consistent, it moves up 2 spots into 5th on 4:02 and also takes back the white jersey. Tiberi moves up 2 spots onto 6th.
Yeah. The expectations from yesterday, Lutsenko and Plab dropping out of the top 6.
Zana, I didn't expect to lose 2 minutes, actually. He's from 9th to 14th. And so I know Rubio is looking very, very good for a top 10. Fortunato too, but certainly the white jersey looks like it's going to be between Tiberi and Uiterbrooks. Uiterbrooks has a lead of 21 seconds. That will be erased by the TT and some, probably, the next one. So
I reckon 1.5 minutes Uiterbrooks needs to consider extra on top of. So 110 is what Tiberi has if you count a TT right now that Kian needs to take back on mountains.
What did Tiberi do yesterday? He did 120. So Uiterbrooks lost 134 yesterday. Yeah, maybe 130, 120. Points, no changes in the top 5, 4, and in the KOM, Pogačar is on 104. He's probably going to win that by default, but Geschke does start his bid for that. But I'm sure there's many more mountains with like triple points or double points coming up later.
Yeah.
What do you think about UAE strategy today, Benji? I mean, it's clearly, I've not really seen this too much from them. Very like clinical, like well executed, can't fault it. Control the middle of the stage, control all the climb. Yeah, Poggy had to respond to a couple of attacks, but then Micah comes back, leads out the sprint. Like, yeah, they really did a good job today. So, and Poggy didn't have to do like a maximum 4K effort solo. He just did a sprint.
It also depends on all the situations, eh? Because first of all, I still think they over control the breakaway formation a little bit too much. There was breakaways that could have gone earlier that were also not dangerous for them. So I still think that they're a bit overstressed during the breakaway formation, as you also see in that moment that you've got, I think it was Micah telling something to Grosschartner in a relatively stressed way. It looked on TV at least. And after that, I have no issue with them going for the stage win. I think that's fine. I don't know. I personally, I don't think the difference between attacking at 3K to go versus going for the sprint in effort is significant enough that it's going to have a lasting effect on the Founder Week or the Tour de France. So I, from a security standpoint, would have been okay with Pogačar attacking, because if you can put the nail in the coffin in stage 9 with a rest day coming in 2 days, tomorrow probably half a rest day as well, I would have probably chosen the attack strategy. But on the other hand, it's also like GC is the reason why, eh? Because in the Tour de France 2020, we would have been critical, and we were critical of Roglic for riding this way, because the other GC riders were still close enough for it to matter. Now it's 2 minutes 40 to Martinez, 2 minutes 58, was 2:36, 2:46 before the stage. They're not that close, so you can do these kind of strategies, and I can't fault them for doing that, because it's unlikely that Pogačar gets beaten in this Giro. While in that Tour de France, I still believed in Pogačar winning the Tour de France 2020,
well,
except for the last day.
What gap did Roglic start the final TT with?
Enough for us to, at that day, consider Roglic to likely be the winner.
Yeah, but it was like a minute, no? It wasn't 240.
No.
So he's got 240, maybe in the TT takes more, maybe takes another 20 bonies.
But it does change maybe the amount of wobbles that Pogacar can get, but with 240 you can have a few wobbles.
Yeah, exactly. So
he usually doesn't have multiple Birker on tour.
But onto that, should any team have done anything different today?
I think Arensman should have been in break.
But then he gets brought back, I guess. And he loses more time.
Yeah.
Like
with the outcome of the stage, no, but I still think that strategy...
Yeah, you should try.
Then you don't know if the break gets called, because then Sheffield and Nerva is right for Arensman in the breakaway.
And then maybe Bjerg doesn't come back because UAE panic and they're chasing in a flat valley with Grosjean and Micah. It changes the whole stage.
That's from a perspective of someone that would always try to win the race, while I think Ineos should probably try and fixate on getting second and getting that top 5 position maybe with Arensman by the end of the race. So from a logical standpoint, I think that's the right thing to do, but I don't care about getting second and 10 if I want to win this race.
G said he felt really, really good and felt comfortable on the climb, which then means, like, why doesn't he put Arensman on the front, Benji, to increase the pace to try and get rid of O'Connor or Martinez? I
don't know, man. Gonna ask G.
Anyway, but you see the risk. Like with Tiberi attacking, you see the risk attacking because everyone's like, oh, okay, attack. They're like, it's 1,500 meters left. Micah's been not pacing very hard for 3Ks.
Yeah.
It levels off to 5% for the last K. Poggy's already shown he's going to shut down anything.
Yeah.
Arensman attacks. What did it get him? An 11-second time loss.
Yeah, but
but it's just it's not even worth it almost attacking that late in the stage. You need someone to.
I agree.
And so that's why we see it shut down. And it was UAE. It was their stage control, and they did so. So yeah, good for Poggy. Another dub ski.
And also, when it comes to Arensman, you got to consider that he could have also just started pacing at the front of the group. It would have been not great for any chances for Thomas in that, but he would have put all the other riders that are around him in GC on a bigger gap.
Probably.
Geerts was dropped. Fortunato is dropped. That rider is still ahead of him.
Zana.
Rubio is the only one that is in the group. Zana's dropped. Lutsenko's dropped. I would have been perfectly okay with Arensman literally pacing the last 2 kilometers till the line.
Because then what, he might be in on everyone else in front of him, like Fortunato, Rubio, Tiberi is still there. Was Fortunato dropped? Fortunato was
dropped.
A little bit of a gap. Yeah, fair enough. He might have been another GC place ahead. Anyway, not the biggest. I mean, this is probably our criticism of the route, Benji.
What?
Well, there's no real proper hard stage for 2 weeks. The first 14 stages, is there? There's the TTs, but like this was.
This is a relatively hard stage in my opinion. But the next week doesn't have that.
There wasn't an HC climb before Pratidativo. Like it wasn't that hard. Like the valley, like they used the rouleurs in the middle of the stage for 60Ks. It wasn't that hard. And so, that's we have to wait for the Livigno stage. Anyway, stage 9 from Avezzano to Napoli, 214Ks, very long. Starts actually quite high at 790 or 700 rather, and then progressively descends. Few little hills. An hour in with 50Ks to go. Punchy hills, then another hill, then another.
Break forms on that first hill with 50K to go, I reckon.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a fast start, isn't it?
Or an Italian protein break, also possible. I don't know.
Then a valley on the coast. Well, not a valley because it's on the coast. It's not a valley if it's got a sea on the other side, is it? Then a flat coastline to a few punchy hills around Napoli. 4Ks 3%, 1.1K 6%, 2Ks 5%, then 3.2Ks 4.5%. I'm just seeing if there's some steep parts in them. Then there's from the top of the last hill, 7Ks to the finish, including a descent, and maybe 3-4Ks of flat to finish in Napoli. This is kind of the Simon Clark, DeMarchi stage last year. Might have even been in Naples where they were caught just near the finish. In my opinion, if you're not Jonathan Milan and Little Trek, I'd want to be in the break tomorrow. Because actually these hills, I think, are a lot familiar.
Yep. Because Grove should hard pace that with Alpecin.
Yeah, maybe Alpecin, they want to smash those hills.
But hey, then people are going to complain. Oh.
How dare they go for it? I don't really see a chance for the break tomorrow if Trek and Alpecin are controlling really well. No.
I think there's too many teams incentivized to still try it.
To get in the break.
Yeah. No, there's too many teams incentivized to still sprint.
Yeah.
But then again, I still Dainese, sorry, but they need someone in the breakaway.
Trenton should go on the break.
But with Quickstep, you can also play it two ways. If it's too much,
put Alaphilippe in the break.
It's the climb's not hard enough for an Alaphilippe move, in my opinion. So you'd have to do someone in the break for something if you want to try.
Yeah. Maybe Ineos try on the final hill to launch Narvaez or Ganna again.
4.4% climb. 3.2 kilometers now, though.
Yeah, and there's steeper sections in that.
How is the comparison between this climb and the one we had where Ganna did attack? This is longer, right?
This is longer and got a steeper section in it. And it's also longer and got a steeper section in it than the climb where Honoré attacked and Poggi followed him.
I'm okay with a Ganna move on this.
I think, yeah, Ganna and Ganna or Narvaez maybe for Ineos. Maybe an Honoré or Piccolo attack. It's going to be difficult for the sprinters teams to control that if people do start to kick off. But I've got Jonathan Milan winning nonetheless, Benji.
I think that's very likely. I think I've got. I don't want to be boring today. I'm gonna go for a breakaway, even though I don't believe in them. I'm gonna go for a breakaway anyway.
Jonas Koch.
Jonas Koch, like
he climbs well, he sprints.
Well, not in this race. I haven't seen it. I will go for Marius Meyerhofer for the sprint.
The sprint? The Cadel-Evans Great Ocean Road Race winner. Like, it's a good course for him. It would need to be very hard.
They can't be focusing on Dainese for this one, right?
You think he'd probably get dropped? They've got Trentin. Meyerhofer in the break would be nasty, but probably won't be allowed in the break or he won't go. I don't know. But I like to pick. It's a very. What about Peleo Sanchez in the break again? He's in the break today. Yeah, why not try?
Gaviria ain't fucking doing it.
No.
Is there a corner in the last kilometer? Because that might define Gaviria's fate.
I haven't seen the man. Have you seen Milano on have you seen the front of Milano's jersey yet this Giro?
I've seen the back of Milano and Gaviria in this race when they were dropping, and that's the only moment I saw them.
Rui Oliveira, Milano.
When Milano had mechanical, no? We saw the front a little bit.
Anyway, obviously didn't matter for UAE today.
Yeah.
But maybe he'll win one anyway. Okay.
Fiorelli top 10 in the sprint? Hilly plus sprint?
Attack. Let him attack Fiorelli. He attacked to Ganna the other day, didn't he?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Lamperti for the sprint instead of Merlier, if Merlier drops?
Yeah, if Merlier drops, then Lamperti will try the sprint.
We're just saying names at this point. I don't see it happening anyway.
No. Anyway, I think Milan will win because he's just too good and too fast.
Yes.
But thanks to Join Cycling for sponsoring this episode. Go and check them out through the link down below, and we'll see you with a recap of the last day before the first rest day tomorrow at Stage 9. Until then, ciao.